1917 is a masterful World War I film directed by Sam Mendez, who previously directed films such as Skyfall and American Beauty. American Beauty is one of my favourite films of all time, and coming into this I was expecting nothing short of magnificent work from this director, and I got that. I think it's a fantastic World War I film which focuses on two primary soldiers. You've got Schofield and Blake, who are essentially going behind enemy lines to deliver a message to troops on the front line to say they're getting themselves into a trap. And this film really does focus on an ode to the human spirit, survival, also brotherhood, and I'm going to be getting into specifics of my review and what I think of it, so hope you guys enjoy it. Here is my review of 1917. The masterful work of 1917, I think, doesn't come through necessarily its themes, nor its story, or its character decisions, and I think they are strong in the film, but I think the thing that stands out the most is the technical wizardry, and when it comes to cinematography, editing, production design, music, I think they all kind of work together to make the one-shot approach of this film, and the way they kind of captured different one-shot scenes and melded them together into one whole sequence, you know, through illusions and camera blocking. I think what that does is it really pushes the themes and the story even further than they could be, because some of the themes and, you know, the story approaches in this film are stuff that I think we've seen before in war, you know, whether it's survival, the tension of war. You know, it comes to a point where there's only so much you can do in a genre like this. But what this does, you know, the way it's filmed, the way that the production design and the cinematography kind of emphasize on these themes and story, is it really just suck the viewer into something that, you know, on paper, without any character development or background, you wouldn't necessarily have the influx of why you should care about it going into it. But the surrounding nature of the technical work really does drag you into it, in a similar way to what Chris Nolan did with Dunkirk. I think with Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, even Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan, although Saving Private Ryan had a lot more dialogue and exposition in there, but this kind of, you know, focuses on projecting an audience's fears onto characters that they don't necessarily know. And I think it really does trust you to kind of go along with the ride in the way it's being presented technically, that drags any viewer into the film. And I think that's the main impression I got, and I think it works wonders. I think, you know, starting off with Roger Deakins' cinematography, there are shots in this film that I didn't think were possible in the way they captured them. It also made me question what was done on set and what was actually done with, you know, post-camera, you know, special effects and stuff, especially the scene with the plane crash as two British planes are kind of tracking down this German plane. They shoot it down, but the plane kind of then directs towards the two main characters who are near kind of this shed and this abandoned house. And what that, you know, that whole scene in general, the way it was captured, as you see the German plane kind of going past the gaps in the wooden shed and then kind of comes round and towards the two characters, I thought that was a perfectly crafted scene in the way it was shot, and I think Roger Deakins deserves all the praise coming out of this, and I would not be surprised if he won Best Cinematography again this year. Obviously, the last film that he shot, Blade Runner 2049, went on to win Best Cinematography. It was a long time coming for his first Oscar, and I think he could win again this year. I think it's between that and Joker, but this film definitely reiterated the power of Roger Deakins when it comes to cinematography. I think also the fact they had Lee Smith, the editor of Dunkirk, editing this film, they were really able to capture a similar approach in terms of, you know, the way the stealthy-like nature of his editing would kind of, you know, keep your attention and keep, you know, how each scene was kind of cut after one another and transitioned into the next. Really felt seamless. It didn't feel like it was, you know, a gimmick. It didn't feel like, oh, here's another one shot. No, the whole thing just felt seamless. It felt like an experience that you had to watch. And I think Lee Smith and Roger Deakins deserve a lot of credit for the way they kind of worked on the cinematography and editing. Again, the soundtrack was fantastic. I think that overall though, one of the main things that stood out, apart from cinematography and editing, as I said, was production design. They crafted some great kind of balances between fields and also run down, decrepit environments. So they kind of contrasted them together. You had scenes with lots of colour in them, with, the field-like environments, and then that kind of contrasted with, the trenches and the difference between the German and the British trenches, and kind of the broken down environments post some of the warfare that was going on in them environments. And then we kind of culminate in this final set piece where, the main character is running towards the camera as kind of explosions are going off and all the troops are rushing past him in the background, and that's taking place on a field. So he kind of melds both of them together in the end, but focuses on the differences between them, and I think the production design in showing that was fantastic. It really does make you think about warfare a bit more, and how, what we're, doing to this planet when it comes to, fighting with other countries in warfare. I think it was great the way they approached that, and overall I have nothing but positive things to say about the technical filmmaking in this film. It was fantastic. It was through the roof. Definitely in the top 2 for me of the year when it comes to all the things that craft a film, production and post-production wise. When it comes to story and themes, as I said earlier on, I think they were strong in this film, and the technical wizardry definitely, pushed them up the scale in terms of how, much you cared about the characters and the story. I think they were definitely on a high level, and it should not be misunderstood that the story and the character development was fine, but as I said, I don't think that was the prominent factor that was positive in this film. It really was the technical work. And I'd seen, stuff before in terms of, the themes of survival and bravery. We see it in all war films, and it comes to a point where, as I said, you can only do so much in that type of film and genre. And I also like the fact that it doesn't focus too much on the action. I mean, there's not set piece after set piece like some reviewers are saying. It's more of a continuous experience which leads into certain set pieces. It's not something that you'll find yourself having action scene after action scene, and I liked the way Sam Mendez tried to create a difference in his type of war film, where we focus on the humanity of the characters we're following, and kind of the constant anxiety surrounding, what they're actually doing, which is going behind enemy lines. And that's it's an extremely hard thing, especially when you have to consider what he's trying to do. He's trying to get to the front line and convince the forces that essentially if they go storming over this battlefield, they are going to get wiped out. And I think that was, really fantastic in the way Sam Mendez kind of built Schofield and Blake's character around that, and the mission they had to go on in order to accomplish that. I think on all forms this film hits very high. In cinematography and technical wizardry, it's definitely, 9, 10 out of 10. In terms of story and themes and the development of characters, it's not as strong, but I don't necessarily think that is the point of this film, and nor should it be. Similar to Dunkirk, it's a film that focuses on putting the audience in that environment, in that experience, and letting them feel what they feel from it, showing them something that actually happened. And it obviously has huge ties to Sam Mendez. It is rooted in his history, and it's something that, he relies on the audience to make their own mind up and put their own fears and anxieties onto these characters without having to tell you the backstories of them, or what is happening and what happens during World War I. He allows the audience to experience it. He treats the audience as smart, and I really appreciate when directors do that, even if they are doing stuff that we have seen in other war films before. But as I said, the thing that stands out in this film is the technical wizardry. It's the technical filmmaking that really does rely on showing you stylistically what happened, the problems of this, and the tensions and anxieties surrounding it. And I think that's what makes 1917 one of the best films of the year. And I quite frankly was blown away by it, even if I had seen some of the things before. So that is my review of 1917. I am giving it a 4.5 star out of 5. As I said, I think the technical approach to the filmmaking was something that was, really did raise this film in terms of my review and my personal opinions on it. But then obviously things to do with the story and themes kind of held it back from being a 5 star for me. I don't think any film really is a perfect 10 out of 10, even if you do give it a 5 5-star or like a 9.5 out of 10, but for me, this film was fantastic. It did everything that I was expecting and beyond that in terms of how it captured this event and put it on screen. So that was my review of 1917. Really enjoyed it. I'm putting it number 4 on my favourite films of the year, behind Hollywood, Joker and Irishman. I'd put it at number 4 on that list, but let me know down below what you think of the film. Did you think it was a masterpiece in terms of, you know, themes, story and approaches to World War I? Don't forget, we haven't seen as much approaches to World War I as we have as World War II. I think in terms of filmmaking, that is. So I think he really did take a brave decision to, you know, capture the tensions between individual forces as well as the opposition forces, because don't forget, there was a lot of generals in World War I which would, you know, really create havoc for their troops, and I think he did show that towards the start of this film, and I found that to be a really brave take, especially, you know, for a film about World War I. But let me know down below what you think of 1917. I really enjoyed it, and it's definitely one of my films of the year. But yeah, let me know down below what you think. Remember to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Check out some of the other content I've been doing. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.